Happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my gut reaction. Kind of, sort of. I'm in the studio, so it's a little bit weird. But it's my gut reaction, technically, to Matt Rhule's season-ending press conference. Now, I don't always react to press conferences. Sometimes I'm interested in what a coach has to say more than I am others. Well, I was pretty interested this time. It's a season-ending press conference. All right, so before we dive into all that, there were 8 black shirts who earned all Big Ten honors this year. Okay, this is per Mitch Sherman. Nebraska defensive players to earn all Big Ten recognition. Luke Grimer, linebacker, third team. Coaches, an honorable mention via the media, honorable mention. Jamari Butler, Omar Brown, Isaac Gifford, Tommy Hill, Quentin Newsom, Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmaker. Some of those guys got robbed. I'm going to be honest with you because they should have been second team or third team or first team. Just saying Ty or Nash maybe, but that's my very biased opinion. All right. This next one is via Evan Bland. No Husker defenders on the all Big Ten first or second team. Further emphasizes the work of Nebraska defensive coordinator Tony White as the Black Shirts finished top 30 nationally in sacks, top 20 in scoring, and top 10 in run defense. Now, before you smash that like button to show those guys some love, because they should get even more love in my humble opinion. Okay, if you didn't already hear, Nebraska scored a major recruiting victory for the Huskers. It's 4-star offensive lineman from Western Iowa. Okay, Grant Bricks is in, so to speak. He committed to the Huskers. So if you want to show the black shirts that earned all Big Ten honors some love, if you want to show Grant some love for joining the Big Red, okay, smash the like button. Now, real quick, Rhule did say, okay, that no player has yet told him they'll be entering the portal when it opens Monday, the transfer portal. Rhule is meeting with each player individually over the next couple of days. Now, I was writing as fast as I possibly could to keep up with what he was saying, and ladies and gentlemen, I did a pretty good job. Most of my notes are legible or possible for me to read. I guess we'll see. Let's light this candle. All right. Now, Rhule did say he met with the team on Monday. The coaches are meeting with players now. Rhule will meet with each player after that. Now, when asked what he might possibly do different or what he learned, okay, he said he's going to ask the seniors. All right, he tries to learn each new place because Temple's different than Baylor. Baylor's different than Nebraska. Okay, and then he'll evaluate what went well and what different, and most importantly, why. Okay. Now, he addresses the quarterback situation, addresses quarterback situation in the transfer portal as well. Now, he wants someone with multiple years of experience and an immediate impact upgrade. All right, now, keep in mind, he did point out a new quarterback costs anywhere from $1 to $1.5 to $2.5 million. And some teams currently have players playing for them that are being paid like $6 to $6.5 million. Now, he did talk about Chubba Purdy's upside, Heinrich Haarberg's upside, and he said, Rhule said he believes Chubba Purdy and Heinrich Haarberg will be good players. Haarberg, Rhule said, wasn't even in quarterback meetings last season, and briefly kind of mentioned, he wants to kind of evaluate why Purdy, and Purdy was banged up this year to be clear, but why he wasn't getting more reps earlier on and how that might have benefited him when he started later on in the year. When asked about Jeff Sims, he said, basically, he's talented. He can make throws, just turn the ball over too much, loves his attitude, and he's a great teammate. He does not regret bringing him to Nebraska. Okay, Rhule did say he still prefers to develop players. All right, talked about his own roster and how much he values the players on his own roster. Like if some of these guys hit the transfer portal, they might have some big dollars thrown at them. So he wants us to remember that because he values the guys on the roster right now. Now, he's not ready to talk about moving offensive coaches around to different positions, so to speak. So, for example, coming into the year, the idea was kind of to maybe have Marcus Satterfield be the offensive coordinator, but coach tight ends and have a different quarterbacks coach, okay? And so he may have, he's not ready to talk about this, basically, okay? These are things he's going to ponder, chat about amongst themselves, figure out, okay? At least that was his initial thoughts going into this previous season. So we'll see if there's any changes made going forward into the next season. All right, Rhule wouldn't let coaches buy players. And when asked if he could change something, he would not allow coaches from other teams to buy players off of other teams' roster. In other words, you spend like a couple years developing this guy. He goes out and he starts playing, and then another guy just throws a bunch of money his way, and all of a sudden he's gone type deal. Like, he's not crazy about that idea. And frankly, I'm not crazy about it either. I get it. Maybe that's something that the NCAA which is absolutely useless. Maybe that's something that college football as a whole can address in the future. All right, now he does support NIL in general, just not buying players off of other teams' rosters, so to speak. Now, Matt Rhule would prefer players in the locker room, be the highest paid guys on the team. He talked consistently about how he values the guys in the locker room and how he wants to take care of the guys in this locker room. Now he did say that he recognizes, that being said, you have to procure talent, easy for me to say, sometimes talent from the outside as well. If you're not utilizing the transfer portal, you're going to fall behind in college football. All right, Matt Rhule said, and I quote, "We should recruit well and we will recruit well," end quote. As we know, early National Signing Day is coming up. And I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I literally just tried to write as fast as I could as he was talking. All right, when asked about Tony White, doesn't want to speak for Tony. He's helping him as much as he can. He says we have a really good defensive staff and we're going to be really good on defense next year. White obviously has opportunities to go elsewhere, or at least there's been conversations, interviews, etc., etc. He did mention he's trying to help him, do the best for him. But if Tony does stay, he'll probably have those same opportunities again next year, so to speak. Tony, please come back. That's Adam Carriker right there. And I'm sure that's Matt Rhule, just didn't say it in the press conference. Now, setter Ben Scott, he expects him to be back. He was in the weight room today. Not sure about Bryce Benhart or Isaac Gifford. They'll announce what they're going to do when they're ready. All right, real quick, as always, check out DPS Concrete Construction, dpsconstruction.net. If you are a diesel mechanic, a CDL driver, a concrete finisher, and looking for work in the Omaha metro area, DPS Construction is the employer for you. A legit owner, a legit company, good people. They do good work. Check them out. dpsconstruction.net, and tell them that Adam Carriker sent you their way. All right, sophomores Ty Hahn and Blaze Gunnarsson are young players, but they're done. They won't be back. Now, talked about Jalen Lloyd, and I haven't had the chance to double check this yet because I wanted to react and do this more like a gut reaction. Jalen Lloyd tied Marvin Harrison Jr. for the most 50-yard touchdown catches this year, and Jalen didn't even play for a good portion of the early part of the season. Now, they did play a lot of young players this year, as we know. He wants to keep doing that and developing guys, And they also redshirted a lot of talented players, lots of young talent, and Rhule wants to keep developing young players. He doesn't know why they wouldn't keep doing it that way. That's how he's done it elsewhere. It's how he wants to continue to do it here. Obviously, you got to incorporate the portal, NIL, and other things that are now a part of modern college football. College recruiting is different than when he left, Went to the Panthers, now with the Huskers. Managing the roster is what he kind of mentioned was the biggest thing. You got guys transferring out, you guys transferring in. Who do you bring? How much do you offer? I mean, it's almost like managing a much bigger NFL roster. I actually think this would be more challenging than an NFL roster. Now, the big thing today is the transfer portal. But he does like, when he's managing the roster, but he does like to focus on blue dot type guys. He goes, you can't have too many D linemen. He's never been overly focused on having a certain amount of running backs or a certain amount of guys in a particular position. He likes to focus on blue dot guys. That's what he calls them. Or in other words, impact type players, the guys who are going to be starting that first and second string. All right, when asked about the offensive line, the defensive line, the trenches, ladies and gentlemen, he feels like the defensive line is as good as anyone. He felt like, honestly, maybe there should have been more all-conference type honors. I tend to agree with him. But he also said, to the victor go the spoils. You want those honors, you got to win more games as well. And there's something to be said for that. Now, when talking about the offensive line, and this includes a bunch of injuries along the offensive line, as we know, they improved a lot, he thought. He actually thought they improved quite a bit. But the offensive line now needs to lift, and they could benefit from another offseason in the weight room. He thinks one of the big keys to being better in the Big Ten is being more physical with the O-line and the tight ends. All right, Gabe Ervin, Ramir Johnson should be back from their injuries. Then you've got Emmett Johnson, who obviously played well for the Huskers this year. Then you got Quentin Eyes, who he's talked about before. He thinks it's a talented running back room. Now, they may want to try to add one more guy, but he likes those 4 running backs as well. All right, when asked about what position group he trusts the most on the team going into next season, he said the defensive line is probably the position group that he's the most comfortable with. They're also going to have the least amount of turnover in that position group as well. When asked about a metric, I recently just did a show, is Nebraska cursed? Go check it out if you haven't. Okay. All right. When asked about a metric that showed Nebraska as the unluckiest team in college football, okay, Rhule said, we're not unlucky. We just have to get better. There were 5 games that we lost by 3 points plus an overtime game or less. He wasn't happy. Now, he's not like complaining about the refs, but just pointing out things that us Nebraska folks have seen as well. He wasn't happy with the outcome of some of the replay calls and some of the targeting call issues and things of that nature. But he thought the team fought and battled this year. And he thought, honestly, there was a lot of games with all the turnovers they've had that they frankly wouldn't have been in had the team not fought so hard. Okay, and he wants to make close losses into close wins. He said that's what he's done other places, okay? And that's kind of what Rhule wants to do going forward into year 2. And he frankly said he's kind of done with year 1. They're going to learn, but he's on to year 2 already. All right, how do they improve on turnovers? That's the magical question, right? With no magical answer, I might add. Okay, now he's even talked to Coach Ron Brown about this, okay? He did say outside of the quarterbacks, okay, he didn't think the other position groups fumbled a disproportionate amount. Basically said it was mostly the quarterbacks putting the ball on the ground. Okay, and he wants to improve the quarterback protection from the O-line, and he wants to improve the run game as an overall whole, and he thinks that might help. Okay. He did mention, in other places, guys have been doing winter conditioning or conditioning drills, and they've done them with the ball in their hands. So maybe they'll start doing that here. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Now, he said it kind of stinks that it takes a year. Okay. But now he knows how to attack teams in the Big Ten. And I quote, it stinks, it takes a year, end quote. But he feels like he knows how to attack teams in the Big Ten now. All right, when asked if Jeff Sims was coming back, says he's going to meet with him tomorrow morning, does not know. My personal opinion, I don't think Jeff Sims will be back. That's, again, Adam Carriker. Okay, now, he won't tell players they have to leave or they have to transfer. That's not how he's going to do things. Now, he might tell them, you're probably not going to start or you may not play a lot, but he's not going to tell them they have to leave. All right, and then he said, and I quote, if anyone thinks this is a one-year deal, then God bless them, end quote. There's a process to this, he said. And he also said, and I quote, this is kind of what you get when you hire me, end quote. He wants to build it up brick by brick, so to speak. When asked about the fans, when asked about the coverage, when asked about the passion of Husker Nation, he says he loves the fans, the support, and the coverage. He basically loves that people care. What coach wouldn't love that? You got to be able to handle everything that comes with it, both good and maybe frustrating. And Rhule seems to be just fine with that. Okay. Rhule said, and I quote, we will be a considerably better football team next year than we were this year, end quote. Now, in year 2, okay, well, you go back to year 1. And he said sometimes players were freaking out learning all the new things they had to do. Okay, he goes, and this is me quoting him, they would say, we have to do what? End quote. Now, year 2, they already know what they have to do. And I can attest to that. It's 1,000 times easier. The amount of thinking that they won't have to do this year because they've already done it and they know exactly what to expect. Ladies and gentlemen, that's huge. You cannot overvalue how important that is, in my humble opinion. Anyways, now, he mentioned, okay, being on the visitor sidelines for the home games, maybe not the best thing. Maybe one of those things you learn in year 1. Rhule thinks they'll have 1 to 3 guys drafted. When asked about the amount of guys they'll have drafted in the NFL, he thinks they'll have 1 to 3 guys drafted and 3 to 6 guys in an NFL camp. And he said, we have a lot of blue collar guys that these NFL teams will love. All right, when asked about recruiting, really, they're going to hit the road starting Friday. Now, Rhule tends to hang back for that first week, but then obviously things crank up for recruiting. Now, my favorite part of the press conference was this, because he believes, and I agree, as soon as he said it, I loved it. Okay. He said the biggest key to this process is when everyone doesn't view this process as Coach Rhule's process, but when everyone invested views it as our process. Rhule saw Jalen Lloyd earlier, and he believes Jalen views it as our process. When you stop viewing it as this is what the coach is telling me to do, this is our process, and this is just who we are. This is our process. That was my favorite point that he made in the press conference today. I freaking love that, and I totally agree. Here are my final thoughts. Rhule is learning from year 1, but he's moved on to year 2. He expects to definitely be better in year 2, and he embraces Nebraska, the tradition, the passion around Husker football. And here's one final thought on those quarterbacks that Rhule said from earlier, but I'm going to revisit that for 1 second. Rhule said he believes Chuba Purdy and Heinrich Haarberg will be good players. Haarberg, Rhule said, wasn't even in quarterback meetings last season. Now, this is the last thing I'm going to ask about Matt Rhule's first season, and here's my 3 questions for you fine folks. What's your biggest takeaway from year 1 under Matt Rhule? Number 2, what's your biggest takeaway from Matt Rhule's press conference? And number 3, what's the biggest thing you want to see improve in year 2 under Matt Rhule? Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you want more YouTube content, check out CarrikerChronicles.com. Oh, and one final quote for you fine folks, and I quote, Matt Rhule said, and I quote, I expect to make a huge jump this offseason and next year because we have stuff to look back upon, end quote. Go Big Red Nose. Remember to throw the ball.